Thank you for visiting Utique Bridal. Today I will be showing you the process of how I hem a lace wedding gown, with a special focus on the lace trim. To make this project less intimidating, I visually divide the dress in half, and whatever I do to one side of the gown, I will repeat it for the other half. Also note that majority of the time, the back will not be hemmed. Most brides would like to keep the length of the train so that it can be bustled. So for this gown, I will focus on the front of the gown only. Before I begin, I'm going to go over the layers of a bridal gown. For this gown, the top layer is the lace fabric, and you can see here that the lace trim is sewn onto a mesh fabric. And the next layer is the satin fabric. This one has a nice sheen to it, and it also gives support to the delicate lace fabric. Next, you have the heavy tulle fabric, and this is what gives the dress its fullness. And lastly, you'll have the lining, which will prevent the tulle from rubbing up against your skin. Here you'll notice that I've already worked on hemming the bottom layers, and we are now ready to focus on the lace trim. As you can see here, I have met the bride and pinned it to the appropriate length. I am also going to take note that the lowest point of the trim, which happens to be the tip of the flower, is 3 inches from the satin hem. Next, detach the chain stitch from the satin fabric. It is usually located near the hem of the gown along the 2 side seams, and the purpose of the chain stitch is just to prevent the lace fabric from shifting. Now we are ready to remove the lace trim. When you look underneath, you can see where the lace trim is sewn onto the mesh fabric. I am going to use the seam ripper to carefully pull at the thread until it releases the trim from the mesh fabric. You may notice some slits in the trim, but this is done by the manufacturer so that it can follow the curve of the hem. And after removing the trim, you may notice some holes in the mesh fabric. But I wouldn't worry about it too much since it's below the satin hem, and it will also later be trimmed off. Next, we are going to pin the trim back onto the mesh fabric. Make sure to take note that the bottom tip of the trim is 3 inches from the satin hem. And then pin. You are just going to pin the trim back on along the front of the dress. When you get to the side of the dress, you may find yourself having to clip some flowers to make sure the fabric lays flat. And now you're just going to sew the trim back on. Next, trim the excess mesh fabric, then reattach the long chain stitch to the hem to stabilize the fabrics. And you are complete. Well, thank you for visiting Utique Bridal, and I hope you get inspired to do something extraordinary. Have a wonderful day. If you would like to see how I create the bustle for this wedding gown, please click on the first video. If you would like to learn how to make a veil with a lace trim, please click on the second video.